ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नंदगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरोन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन् इति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्या नाम्ने गौरत्विषे नमः। पञ्चतत्त्वात्मकं कृष्णं भक्तरूपस्वरूपकं भक्तावतारं भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तशक्तिकम्। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare Hare. On the auspicious occasion of Nrisimha Katha, reading from Canto 7, Chapter 8, chapter entitled The Lord Slays the King of the Demons. Text 17. Satyam vidhatum nijabhritya bhashitam Vyaptim cha bhuteshu akhileshu cha atmanaha adrishyata ati adbhuta rupam udvahan stambhe sabhayam na mrgam na manusham satyam vidhatum nijabhritya bhashitam vyaptim cha bhuteshu akhileshu chatmanah adrishyata atyadbhutarupam udvahan stambhe sabhayam na mrigam na manusham satyam vidhatum nijabhritya bhashitam vyaptim cha bhuteshu akhileshu chatmanah adrishyata atyadbhutarupam udvahan stambhe sabhayam na mrigam na manusham satyam vidhatum nijabhritya bhashitam vyaptim cha bhuteshu akhileshu chatmanah adrishyata atyadbhutarupam udvahan stambhe sabhayam na mrigam na manusham
Adrishyata
Yeah, Gopinath. Yeah, Radha Gopinath. Mataris. Satyam, true. Vidhatum, to prove. Nijabhritya bhashitam, the words of his own servant, Prahlad Maharaj, who had said that his Lord is present everywhere. Vyaptim, the pervasion, cha, and bhuteshu, among the living entities and elements, akhileshu, all, cha, also, atmanaha, of himself, adrishyata, was seen, ati, very, adbhuta, wonderful, rupam, form, udvahan, taking, stambhe, in the pillar, sabhayam, within the assembly, na, not, mrigam, an animal, na, nor, manusham, a human being. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. To prove that the statement of his servant Prahlad Maharaj was substantial, in other words, to prove that the Supreme Lord is present everywhere, even within the pillar of an assembly hall, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari exhibited a wonderful form never before seen. The form was neither that of a man nor that of a lion. Thus the Lord appeared in his wonderful form in the assembly hall. Purport. When Hiranyakashipu asked Prahlad Maharaj, "Where is your Lord? Is he present in this pillar?" Prahlad Maharaj fearlessly replied, "Yes, my Lord is present everywhere." Therefore, to convince Hiranyakashipu that the statement of Prahlad Maharaj was unmistakably true, the Lord appeared from the pillar. The Lord appeared as half lion and half man, so that Hiranyakashipu could not understand whether the great giant was a lion or a human being. To substantiate Prahlada's statement, the Lord proved that his devotee, as declared in Bhagavad Gita, is never vanquished. Kaunteya pratijanihi name bhaktaha pranashyati. Prahlad Maharaj's demoniac father had repeatedly threatened to kill Prahlad. But Prahlad was confident that he could not be killed, since he was protected by the Supreme Lord. By appearing from the pillar, the Lord encouraged his devotee, saying in effect, "Don't worry, I am present here." By manifesting his form as Nrsimhadev, the Lord also preserved the truth of Lord Brahma's promise that Hiranyakashipu was not to be killed by any animal or any man. The Lord appeared in a form that could not be said to be fully a man or a lion. So, we welcome all the devotees on the occasion of Nrisimha Caturdashi. Jai Nrsimhadev Bhagwan ki. This is part of the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Amongst the topics of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Atra Sarga Visargascha Sthanam Poshanam Utaya Manvantara Ishanu Katha Nirodha Muktir Ashraya. So, the 7th topic, or one of the topics which comes, Sarga Visarga Sthana Poshana Utaya. So, Uti refers to Shubh Ashubh Ichha, auspicious and inauspicious desires. So, therefore, in this particular pastime, Hiranyakashipu's description is given in great detail. In fact, there are 10 chapters which discuss both Prahlad Maharaj and Hiranyakashipu and Nrsimhadev's intervention. And one may wonder that why such elaborate description about Hiranyakashipu is given. In fact, among these chapters, the descriptions of demoniac tendencies is much more elaborate. And many times on several Nrsimha Chaturdashi festivals, you spend 3/4 of the time describing about Hiranyakashipu. Then you wonder that is some time remaining for Prahlad and Nrsimhadev. So therefore, Sridhar Maharaj says, Uti refers to Shubh Ashubh Ichha. How we must avoid Ashubh Ichha, inauspicious desires, and how we must cultivate Shubh Ichha or auspicious desires. Therefore, this particular pastime begins with the description at Rajasuya Yagya, where Shishupal has just been killed. Shishupal has been killed by the Sudarshan Chakra of Lord Krishna. By seeing that, Yudhishthir Maharaj gets a doubt whether the Lord is partial or impartial. Because the Lord is supposed to be Samoham Sarva Bhuteshu. The Lord is supposed to be partial towards all beings. But it appears the Lord repeatedly behaves in a way which creates a doubt in the mind of the observer. That is the Lord true to his word? If he is impartial, why he seems to be especially very, very eager to intervene to protect the demigod's interests? So at this point, when Yudhishthir Maharaj asks this question to Shripad Narad Muni, so therefore Narad Muni is standing right there in the assembly of the Rajasuya Yagya. The conclusion of the Rajasuya Yagya would be Yudhishthir Maharaj would be declared king. If Yudhishthir Maharaj was an ordinary person who was eager to become the king and hungry for power, he would not have bothered to begin a philosophical discussion in the midst of the Yagya. And right in the midst of the Yagya, Yudhishthir Maharaj forgets about becoming king, forgets about the conclusion of the Yagya, and he develops this curiosity within his heart, and he takes that curiosity to its ultimate conclusion by daring to present this question to Narad Muni. And why I say daring? Because when you put forward a question in front of a saintly person, you don't know how long the answer will go. And you never know when the yagya will be completed, and there is no guarantee where he will become the king. So this also demonstrates the total absorption, devotion and detachment of Yudhishthir. Tasmat vairanu nirvairena bhayena va snehat kamena va yunjat kathanchit nakshate prathak. So it is described that the Lord can be attained simply by absorption. And many times, even demoniac personalities, when they are absorbed in thinking about the Lord in enmity, even then they can actually be liberated. Because the Lord is absolute. And absolute means He is all good. And therefore, most people do not have a proper understanding of who is God. And therefore they get confused. Srila Prabhupada was giving a television interview. There was the interviewer on one side, Prabhupada was on another side, and in between there was a brilliant, beautiful, attractive picture of Krishna in his bluish complexion and yellowish clothes, beautiful, attractive, ornate turban, peacock feather. And this interviewer was intrigued to see Krishna's photo, and he had heard about the Hare Krishnas. So he began the interview by skeptically looking at Srila Prabhupada and then pointing towards Krishna's photo. And he asked Srila Prabhupada, "So Swami, is this your God? Is this your God?" Prabhupada, without batting an eyelid, said, "This is your God also." So who is this Krishna, the supreme absolute truth? He is all good. Padbhyam bhakta hridistabhyam vandabhyam lokavanditaihi angam yasyaha samakramya bhagavan apitastanam yatu dhani apisa swargam avapa jananim gatim krishna bhukta stanakshira kim gavo matara. So even Putana approaches Krishna with the intention of killing Krishna, with the action of killing Krishna, and Krishna delivers Putana and gives her the position of mother in the spiritual world, thus throwing a proposal and offer in front of all the conditioned soul for all time to come. Whom do you want to develop a relationship with? And Krishna is saying, you have a choice between developing a perfect relationship with objects, situations, circumstances, things and positions and people of this world. And you have me on the other hand. And you may not develop the perfect relationship, but you could begin that relationship. There could be a semblance of the relationship. There could be a blemish or mistake in that relationship. You could take baby steps and fail in succeeding to establish that relationship. Which one do you prefer? A successful relationship with objects and things of this world, or an imperfect relationship with Krishna? So through the pastime of Putana, Krishna is making an offer that Putana made an imperfect relationship with me, and in spite of her imperfect relationship, she attained perfection. So therefore, why are you bothering and worrying so much about developing perfect relationship with circumstances in this world? And therefore, Hiranyakashipu, he represents a demoniac tendency which is called Asura. Asura means Asu Ramante iti Asura. Asu basically means breathing. So one who lives simply to maintain their breath, they are called Asuras. That means my breathing must continue at any cost. And even if it is the cost of taking others' breathing, that is called Asura. Asu Ramante iti. So Hiranyakashipu was in that category. And therefore, this description about the pastime of Hiranyakashipu represents the deadly, powerful influence of the false ego, which makes each and every conditioned soul convinced that I am the center of this universe, I am the controller, I am the enjoyer, I am all in all. So Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, these two brothers, they created havoc in the entire universe. So this particular pastime begins where Hiranyakashipu is expressing regret over the killing of his own brother Hiranyaksha. And Hiranyakashipu gathers all of his relatives and assembled members, and it is described that Hiranyakashipu at that point was very, very angry with the fact that his own brother was destroyed and killed. And so he orders all of his demoniac associates to create havoc in the creation. Yatra yatra dvija gabo veda varnashrama kriyaha tam tam janapadam yata sandipayata vrishchata. And what is the instruction which Hiranyakashipu gives to his demoniac followers? Destroy these three powerful locations where Brahmanas are, where scripture is, and where the cows are. Because all of these provide the right ecosystem, the culture, the background for spiritual consciousness and faith to flourish. And in this way, he creates havoc throughout the entire creation, destruction through his agents. Srila Prabhupada met one gentleman in South India, and there was a conversation, and this gentleman told Prabhupada that I am an archaeologist. And Prabhupada said, oh, what does that mean? What do you do? He said, well, I study ancient people. I study ancient people. So, Prabhupada, ancient and primitive people, he said actually. I study ancient and primitive people. And then he turned to Prabhupada because he was intrigued to see Prabhupada, surrounded by Western disciples, saffron clothes, like a sannyasi. And he asked Prabhupada, so what about you? Who are you? Prabhupada said, I am A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. Sir, what do you do? Prabhupada said, I study advanced people. The great kings, the powerful Rajarishis, those who are following the Vedic principles. And in this way, the whole idea of modern civilization is how spirituality is not allowed to flourish because of increased materialism. And so Hiranyakashipu turns towards his own relatives, Hiranyaksha's wife and his own mother, and starts speaking philosophy to try to console them. Hiranyakashipu is extremely angry with Lord Vishnu for having killed his brother. How many millions of people Hiranyaksha killed, that was not counted. But he got killed, and someone close to me got killed. That was important. So the frame of reference was I, me, and mine. So he says, Bhutanam iva samvasa, prapayam iva suvrate, daivena ekatra netanam, unnetanam swakarmabhi. Hiranyakashipu turns to his family members and says, do not lament, do not cry for the death of our dear brother Hiranyaksha. He was a noble soul. These kind of tragedies do happen in life. He gives the example. Bhutanam iva samvasa prapayam iva suvrate. When many people come together to a restaurant or a hotel and they sit around a table, daivena ekatra nitanam, destiny brings those friends together at one spot for some time. They come, conduct their business, eat different items, and they go away in different directions. Like that, by the influence of destiny, time factor, different souls come together, stay in some kind of relationships. Sometimes it may be congenial, sometimes it may not be. There may be family, friends, whatever. Daivena ekatranitanam unnitanam swakarmabhi. They are brought together and then they are dissipated after some time. It is all the power of time factor. Daiva is all powerful. So if you just take this shloka as a stand-alone verse and you see it in your cell phone and you do not know the context and you do not know much scripture also, you may think this may be spoken by Krishna himself. This may be spoken by any of the rishis, great sages. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport that philosophy without character is useless. And so we also find that in the pastime of Rukmini Haran, when Krishna manages to kidnap Rukmini and all the forces of Dwarka with Balramji defeat Shishupal, defeat Rukmi, Shishupal, all of those kings together. So Shishupal is very dejected because he had a desire to marry Rukmini and he failed in that attempt. So he was sitting and crying. Jarasandha came to him, patted his back and said, "Why are you depressed? You got defeated once and you are depressed. Do you know how many times I got defeated? 17 times and still counting." Life is like that. And then he spoke 2-3 verses on the time factor. So he would have been a powerful motivational speaker in today's time. So philosophy without character is useless, and the whole idea is spiritual knowledge is not simply meant for information, it is meant for transformation. Many years ago, I was in a program somewhere in one college, and I was shocked to see that inside the college, the scene was ghastly. In the classroom, the fan blades were bent like lotus petals. And I could see that so many of the benches were missing. Only few benches were there. And remaining wooden benches were missing. So I asked the professor, why it's like this? Why it is bent? He said, sometimes the students are in angry mood. And in the state of anger, they bend it. We feel grateful that they don't attack us. And then I said, what about the benches? Where are they? And they said in winter season, sometimes they need to heat themselves up, so they burn some of that. Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya. So, is that the purpose of education? Simply so that one gets a degree, one gets a certain certificate, one gets some information? So Srila Prabhupada was talking to a couple of scholars. This was in Vrindavan. And these two scholars were powerful Vedic scholars, and they came to Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada suddenly asked one of them, who is God? And then he started saying, Swamiji, that is a very detailed subject. God can be this also, God can be that also. God can be so many things. You know. And then Prabhupada turned to the other scholar and said, what about you? What is God? Who is God? So he said, well, it's a very, very detailed subject which needs research for many, many years, and it requires a dialogue. Just over a casual conversation, it cannot be spoken. So nearby there was one Gurukul boy playing. Prabhupada called that Gurukul boy. And then Prabhupada had a barfi in his hand. And Prabhupada turned to the Gurukul boy and said, who is God? And this Gurukul boy saw the barfi and he was thinking, who is this God who is coming between me and the barfi? And then he looked at the barfi and he realized that if I give the right answer, the future is bright. So immediately he said, Krishna. Prabhupada said, very good. And Prabhupada turned to the boy again with another barfi. And Prabhupada said, who is Krishna? Immediately he said, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prabhupada gave him and said, go and play. And Prabhupada turned to the scholars and he said, just see, Even a small child knows the conclusion. Then immediately the scholar said that Swamiji, he does not know how Krishna is God. Prabhupada said that even Krishna doesn't know. Because by the time he realizes his glories expand. So therefore the purpose of knowledge is to have a real experience of spirituality. And that must manifest in transforming one's hearts, one's minds, one's desires, and one's character. And therefore, here, Hiranyakashipu is extremely intelligent, but his intelligence is not being used in the right direction. So Hiranyakashipu is still obsessed with becoming the most powerful. So he's using his intelligence in the service of his ego. And therefore, he starts performing austerities to please Lord Brahma. And the kind of austerities he performs without food, without drink, without even breathing, and then standing on one leg, it is something which in Kali Yuga we cannot even imagine. We cannot even fathom. We cannot imitate. And at that time, at the end of his austerities, Lord Brahmaji manifests right in front of him. And Hiranyakashipu becomes so overwhelmed with joy and bliss. He actually offers his obeisances to Brahmaji after Brahmaji puts water, sprinkles water from his kamandalu, revives him. Hiranyakashipu is an embodiment of so-called humility. And then he goes on glorifying Brahmaji, expressing how great he is and expressing how insignificant he himself is. And then in the end, he lets the cat out of the bag. And then he says, Yadi dasyasi abhimatan varan me varadottama. I actually do not want anything. But in case you want to give me any benediction, varan me varadottama, O best amongst those who can fulfill desires of their worshippers, I have only one humble desire. Bhutebhyas tvat visrishtebhyo mrityur mabhu mama prabhu. May no living entities ever created be able to destroy me. So, Hiranyakashipu has great phobia of Lord Vishnu because he knows his brother got killed by Vishnu in the form of a boar. So Vishnu can take any form. So therefore, he is saying that no one in any form should be able to kill me. And then he goes on adding various other conditions. Because of his false ego, he does not trust and have full faith whether Brahmaji has understood or not. So he wants to establish all the details properly to make sure all the conditions are watertight. Nantar bahir diva naktam anyasmat apichayudhai na bhumau na ambare mrityur na narair na mrigair. And then he is satisfied that yes, not inside the house, not outside. Not in day, not at night. Not by any kind of weapons which have ever been created. Na bhumau, not on the earth, na ambre, not in the sky. Na narair, na mrigair. Not by any human beings and not by any mrig or animals. So, Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, many times achieving benedictions is easier than maintaining them. And therefore Hiranyakashipu was very eager to get those benedictions, but he had no idea how difficult it is going to be to maintain it. And that's what Brahmaji also says, that this is something which has never been given, and to conquer over death in this body is not possible. The aspiration to be eternal is wonderful, and the soul is eternal, and spiritual life is all about attaining eternal service in eternity. But there was only one problem, that Hiranyakashipu wanted this sense of eternity within this body. Small mistake, major repercussions. And therefore, one businessman came to Srila Prabhupada and he was saying that, Swamiji, I have one factory here in Delhi. I have another factory in Jaipur. And then he was going on telling a list of things which he was having. And then he said, that Swamiji, I have all these things, but I am not able to sleep at night. Prabhupada said, well, you give some of those things to us, you can sleep peacefully. He got nervous and he started walking away. Prabhupada said, take his address. He said, Swamiji, I can come to you. Prabhupada said, no, we should also be able to come to you. And then Prabhupada said, you think that by having more and more, you will be happy. That is a fallacy. Everything belongs to Krishna, and unless you offer things to Krishna, you cannot experience real joy. And therefore, Hiranyakashipu was given this benediction by Brahmaji with conditions that be careful. It is not possible to maintain this. And while receiving these benedictions, Hiranyakashipu never imagined that the Lord will be able to somehow manifest himself to kill in spite of all these benedictions. Srila Prabhupada mentions that one of the definitions of management in Krishna consciousness is to create interest in Krishna consciousness where there is none. To make Krishna consciousness manifest in a place where it appears there is no possibility. Just like Hiranyakashipu's all of these benedictions made it appear there is no place for Lord to come and intervene and do anything. It appears to be totally impossible. But Prabhupada says that is the meaning of real management and leadership in Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada says that there are 4 tips for anyone who wants to organize and manage Krishna conscious activities. First, make sure that you are chanting Hare Krishna nicely and the people connected to you are chanting Hare Krishna nicely. Second, make sure that people are following the rules and regulations. Third, make sure there is good arrangement for prasadam. And fourth, ensure that preaching and the spirit of preaching is being conducted properly. And so, utsahan nishchayat dhairyat. So if there is only enthusiasm without patience, it results in a desire to control. And when there is only patience and no enthusiasm, it results in complacency. And so, we have Hiranyakashipu whose heart is filled with unlimited desires. But Krishna consciousness is the art of conquering over our desires one by one. And materialistic life gives the definition of success as fulfillment of thousands of your desires, whereas Krishna consciousness is the attempt to conquer over one desire. And if you are able to conquer over one desire, that is more powerful than trying to fulfill thousands of desires. And therefore, here, Hiranyakashipu managed to fulfill his desire of becoming the most powerful person. And now, his uncontrolled senses result in dissatisfaction only. So these are the different lessons which we are learning in today's discussion. The first lesson was life's questions need answers from a guru. life's questions may be perplexing. So Srila Prabhupada makes a beautiful point. A devotee may be perplexed, but he is never discouraged. Perplexed means not knowing why something is happening. But discouragement means giving up the will to perform that activity. So therefore, we approach the Guru, we approach the Vaishnava Sangha, we approach the Satsanga with the desire to resolve our perplexed questions. So that is the first thing. Second point was that the demoniac tendency is to give pain to others and to give pleasure to oneself. And that's what Hiranyakashipu did in the whole universe. And now we are coming to the third principle, which is uncontrolled senses result in dissatisfaction only. However much we try to control, however much we try to enjoy, we may feel, yes, I have achieved this. But then ultimately, if the senses are not in control, those uncontrolled senses result in dissatisfaction. And so Hiranyakashipu's situation, after being benedicted by Lord Brahma, is described. That Hiranyakashipu was constantly drunk, not only by power, but also by various kinds of liquor. Tam angamattam madirono gandhina vivritta tamraksha ashesha dhishnyapa. So Hiranyakashipu managed to conquer over all the demigods, and 33 crore plus demigods were employed by him in various activities simply under his directions. When he would glance at Surya, Suryadev would have to adjust the temperature accordingly. When he would glance at Indra and give order to Indra, Indra was forced to shower rains. All the demigods knew we are at the beck and call of Hiranyakashipu. And he engaged many of the demigods in his palace as domestic servants also. And Hiranyakashipu was so powerful that he decided to change the laws of the universe, and he changed the laws that whoever committed papa would go to Swarga. And whoever followed piety, they went to Naraka. Such power, such control, nobody can imagine. And at this point, one may imagine that if someone has so much power, such ability to fulfill his desires, he must be swimming in an ocean of ecstasy. Many people in Kali Yuga, if you tell this, he got whatever he wanted. He could get any object. He could just glance at any object, it was his. There was no need for any credit card. The whole universe was like a mall for him. He owned it. He owned everything, everyone. Many people in Kali Yuga may think, oh, that's my role model. Wow, he made it. What a success. But his experience is described. Sa itham nirjita kakub ekarad vishayan priyan yathopa josham bhunjano natripyat ajitendriya. Although Hiranyakashipu had conquered over the universe, sa itham nirjita kakub, you could not conquer over him. Ekarat, he was the only conqueror. Vishayan priyan, he could enjoy any sense object. Yathopa josham bhunjano, whenever he wanted, whatever he wanted, the way he wanted, he could enjoy. So was he satisfied? Was he blissful? Na atripyat. He was totally dissatisfied. Why? Ajitendriya. His senses were not under control. So many times in these days, bars are also called permit rooms. Another way of looking at it is you are given permission to go to hell, to commit sin and perform activities of sense gratification which drag you towards hellish conditions. One of Prabhupada's disciples' father, he had a struggle with his habit of smoking. And then he approached Prabhupada and he said, I've been trying to give up smoking for a long time. I'm not able to give up. Prabhupada said, I've told you so many times, why can't you give up smoking? It's so simple. And he said, Swamiji, looks like I need Krishna's special mercy. Only if I get Krishna's special mercy, I'll be able to give up. So Prabhupada said, Krishna's special mercy is Yasyaham Anugrahinami Harishye Tadhanam Shanai. When Krishna gives special mercy, you know what happens? First, he takes away all your assets. Then, all your friends and relatives abandon you. Then you get severely criticized. This is how Krishna's mercy manifests. This man said, I think I'll give up on my own. This is too dangerous. We have opportunity to self-discipline ourselves by understanding that in due course of time, sense gratification only results in dissatisfaction. If Hiranyakashipu with such power, such ability to enjoy, experienced misery, will the experience be any different if we try it with a different version? No. So therefore, Prabhupada said, because the conditioned soul has such a desire to enjoy, therefore, if you speak the philosophy initially, nothing enters. Because the mind is constantly bombarding. I am the enjoyer, I am the enjoyer, I am the enjoyer. And the lecture says, you're not the enjoyer, you're not the enjoyer. It doesn't enter immediately. Right? And then many times the new person who's hearing may think, maybe the speaker is frustrated. Or he couldn't enjoy. He got some major problems in life. Poor fellow. But what really connects is the prasad. So therefore Prabhupada, often makes this point that Mahaprabhu for masses, kirtan, prasad. Right? I used to go to one college program and the statistics was for my lecture 5 people, for prasadam 40 people. And one day when I went to the program, the kitchen was late in giving me prasadam, so I went alone without the prasad. The host was looking at me and saying, you came alone today? So I said, what happened? Every time I come alone only. No, what about prasad? I said, it's coming, Baba. He said, please come, please come. So Prabhupada was in Mayapur and he saw a new bhakta sitting there and there was like a big pile of rice right in front of him, like this. Prabhupada was passing by, suddenly he turned and he saw this and he stood there with his eyes wide open. And Prabhupada said, there is such a mountain of rice, I don't even see who is behind it. So, Krishna Nam, Krishna Katha, Krishna Prasad. Through this process of honoring Krishna Prasadam, even if one has no idea about the philosophy, what the Prasadam does is it allows you to enjoy and then takes away your enjoyment propensity. Best of both the worlds. Any problems? It is the best situation, right? So therefore, it is here described that Hiranyakashipu, he experienced this frustration because all of his desires to enjoy were being fulfilled, but he was experiencing dissatisfaction. So Bhagavatam gives the analogy that you are inside a prison house and the bars are there. I see the free world outside the bar. When I glance through the bars, what I see is the world outside, but I am not able to connect with that because I am behind the bars. So I may hear about so many things, I see so many things, but the philosophy cannot connect because those bars of material desires do not allow me to come out and experience Krishna consciousness. Therefore, very, very important point which Srila Prabhupada mentions here. Bhukta bhoga parityakta drishta dosha cha nityasha na ishvarasya ashubham dhatte swe mahimni sthitasya cha. When the conditioned soul, after having made efforts and attempts to enjoy, comes to the conclusion that this was a mistake. Yes, I must try to change my philosophy of life. Rather than trying to be the enjoyer, I must try to be the servant. Na ishvarasya ashubham dhatte swe mahimni sthitasya cha. That is the time when the soul experiences the full glory and power of his own self as the soul, part and parcel of Krishna. Hena prema Sri Chaitanya dila yatha tatha jagai madhai paryanta anyaraka katha. So in the Manu Samhita it is described that there are 3 symptoms of lust, or 3 symptoms of one who is free from the influence of lust. The first is the tendency to constantly think about enjoyment with the opposite sex. The second tendency is to lie. And the third symptom is one wants to punish more than what someone deserves. And these are the symptoms of lust. And as long as the lust is there strongly embedded in the heart, the tendency to enjoy the objects of this world will be very strong. And so, Hiranyakashipu was an embodiment of great terror, great frustration, and great fear. And now, the demigods who were being tormented, who were being completely under captivity, who were forced to become servants of Hiranyakashipu as the objects to facilitate Hiranyakashipu's enjoyment, they were in total frustration. 33 crore demigods together could not conquer over Hiranyakashipu. Today, being Nrisimha Chaturdashi, the appearance of Lord Nrsimhadev, we experience joy and we look forward to this festival. But the people who were looking forward to Nrisimha Chaturdashi more than any of us, were the demigods. Because it meant something to their lives. It meant what? Independence Day. So Nrisimha Chaturdashi can also be celebrated as the Devata's Swatantrata Divas from the captivity of Hiranyakashipu. Right? So they approach Lord Vishnu and they say, Yada deveshu vedeshu goshu vipreshu sadhushu dharme maicha vidvesha sava ashu vinashyati. So when they approach Lord Vishnu and they are begging and praying, my dear Lord, please do something about this. We are supposed to be your servants. We are your devotees. Are you seeing? What is our condition? And Lord Vishnu says, don't worry. Everything will happen. When? Yada. When the right time comes. So Krishna is not bound to fulfill our desires as per our timelines. Krishna will fulfill his plans as per his timelines. Yada deveshu vedeshu goshu vipreshu sadhushu dharme maicha vidvesham. When Hiranyakashipu demonstrates violence, envy, anger, and he attacks all of these tattvas, the cows, the brahmanas, the spiritual personalities, the Vaishnavas, at that time, Sava Ashu Vinashyati. He will very soon be destroyed. And then demigods were thinking, is there anything more left? So much of violence has already happened. So much of offense has already been perpetrated. What more is left? Because practically nothing was left for the demigods. And in that time the Lord says, Nirvairaya prashantaya swasutaya mahatmane praharadaya yada druhyet hanishyepi varorjitam. The Lord says, dear demigods, when the moment comes when Hiranyakashipu starts tormenting his own son Prahlad, who is Nirvairaya, who is without any enemy, Prashantaya, who is without any material desires, Mahatmane, he is a great soul, Praharadaya yada druhyet, when he attacks Prahlad, when he is violent towards Prahlad, Hanishyepi, he will be destroyed. Varorjitam. Although he may be benedicted profusely by Brahmaji, although Hiranyakashipu may be practically be indestructible, his defenses may be impregnable, still, when he offends his son Prahlad, who is a great Mahatma, that Hiranyakashipu will be destroyed for sure. Please go. So the demigods, they understand that yes, it's coming soon. And so it is described that offense towards devotees, it makes us susceptible to be destroyed, even though there may be so many benedictions. And how does the offense begin? It begins as ashraddha or faithlessness. And that ashraddha leads to another disrespect, upeksha, neglect, and ninda, criticism. And therefore, His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj, while giving a talk, was speaking that there are two categories of people who have left satsang in the past, or the association of devotees. Leaders who make mistakes and followers who find fault with the leaders. And therefore, sometimes if someone is neophyte, he takes great pleasure in fault finding. But if someone is enlightened, he finds this habit of fault finding very sickening. And so, how does a sincere devotee respond when he or she is subjected to fault finding, or when he or she sees a fault and they feel they need to correct the situation? So we must look at this as an opportunity to serve and do something right. So if the mood of service is not there, and the mood and the intention to correct things is not there, then one will be subjected to unnecessary criticism and ultimately offenses. So here we can see that all of these demigods, they are approaching Lord Vishnu, and Lord Vishnu is fully, totally behind the demigods, convincing the demigods, the moment Prahlad is offended, I will manifest. So this is the fourth lesson which we learn in today's discussion, that the devotee of the Lord is always protected by the Lord. No dvigna chitto vyasaneshu nispraha shruteshu drishteshu guneshu avastudrik dantendriya prana shariradhi sada prashanta kamo rahita surasura. Prahlad Maharaj is so pure. His heart is devoid of any desires to enjoy. Na udvigna chitta vyasaneshu. He is not attracted to any kind of sense objects. Nispraha, he is detached. Shruteshu drishteshu guneshu, towards objects in this world and in the next life after this. His integrity, his character is impeccable. So Srila Prabhupada gives the example that just like when the sun is rising, it is reddish in color. When the sun is setting, it is reddish in color. Similarly, great devotees in prosperity and in adversity, they show the same color. They are constantly Krishna conscious. And therefore, Dantendriya prana sharira dhi sada prashant kamo rahita sura sura. So Sri Prahlad, although he was repeatedly attacked and rebuked, but still he was not shaken because he was constantly thinking about Lord within the core of his heart. And therefore, maturity in Krishna consciousness is three things: to establish connection with Krishna, to experience the comfort of shelter of Krishna, and then to express our compassion towards other souls. And Prahlad Maharaj was in this way filled with full Krishna consciousness. And so here it is described, Nyasta Kredanako Balo Jadavattan Manastaya Krishna Griha Grihitatma Naveda Jagadishwaram. That Prahlad Maharaj was constantly thinking about Krishna. Why he was protected, why he was secure, why he was fearless? Because he could look at every situation as an intervention of Krishna. He could see Krishna's hand behind everything. He could see it as Krishna Prasad. And therefore, he was Krishna Griha Grihitatma. He was influenced by Krishna Griha, which is the planet of Krishna, which is Goloka Vrindavan. That means he was constantly Krishna conscious. Therefore, the ability to see Krishna's hand behind things can only come when we connect with the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. And so, Shrinvata Shraddhaya Nityam Granatascha Swacheshtitam Kalena Nati Dirghena Bhagavan Vishde Hridi. Because when we study Srimad Bhagavatam, then we see what is the price great souls have actually paid in the past to actually become Krishna conscious. So one of Srila Prabhupada's disciple was telling the story that he wanted to find who's the real guru, genuine guru. He said, but he had 4 conditions. He must know the absolute truth. He must know the process to attain the absolute truth. He must be able to read my mind. And he must be able to predict the future. So he had so many conditions. So somehow he went to this LA temple and Prabhupada was giving the class. And, he was at that time still a hippie and had long hair. So he just felt that, all these devotees have shaved heads and all sitting in front. I'm different. I'll sit in the back. So he was sitting right at the back. Srila Prabhupada was right there. And Prabhupada began the class by saying, when you have a human form of body and do not use that human form of body for self-realization and understanding the absolute truth, you are a miser. And Prabhupada's opening statement was so heavy that the devotees sitting in front, they moved a little aside. They wanted to be out of the striking range. And between Prabhupada and this devotee, there was like a gap. And then Prabhupada looked at him. And Prabhupada started saying, Krishna is the absolute truth. One who does not try to follow the absolute truth or experience the absolute truth through bhakti is a miser. And not only is a miser, he's always doubting. So he thought, oh my God, he's seeing my mind. He's explained who's the absolute truth. And he's explained the process as bhakti. And then he was looking at others. Everybody was like on the side. And Prabhupada and him. And then Prabhupada said, in Kali Yuga, people think they will become beautiful by having long hair. And then Prabhupada quoted from the 12th canto Bhagavatam. And this devotee was thinking, I was thinking whether he'll be able to predict the future or not. And he has done it. I don't know what else he's going to do. He got up, ran away. And he was thinking constantly, Prabhupada, why did he say I'm a miser? I'm not a miser. I'm very generous. And the next day he came with a check of $1,000. So he approached one devotee. And this devotee said, you want to meet Prabhupada and give this? He said, no. He was thinking, yesterday was enough for me. I don't know what else will happen. So he gave this check and said, please go and give this check. And then this devotee went up, gave the check, came back, and then this devotee was like, at that time a hippie, was wondering what Prabhupada said. He said, what did Prabhupada say? And this devotee said, Prabhupada said, he has understood properly. So, to understand Krishna consciousness means to transform our consciousness from being the enjoyer to be a servant, and to know that Krishna Griha Grihitatma, always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. So therefore Srila Prabhupada spent several years writing his purports in the middle of the night, so that by connecting with this philosophy, transformation can happen. Right? There was one devotee in the Russian army, and he was trying to sell his Bhagavad Gita to his superior, his boss, who was like a major in the army. And he was rejecting for many days. And he was again and again saying, please take it, please take it. Finally he took it. Of course he charged him for that. So he sold him the book. And then this major thought, okay, problem is over. But next problem began. This devotee started asking him every day, have you read it? Have you read it? Have you read it? And he was thinking, Arey Baba, leave me alone. So his follow-up was so pakka, even this major started thinking, if I don't read this, so he'll keep asking me. And then he looked at the size of the book. It was pretty formidable. And he thought, it'll take me like my whole career to read this. So then he opened and he saw that there is translation and there are purports. So he figured out that this is the main thing, the translation. So he quickly went through the translation in a few days. And then he called this devotee and said, I read it. I read the whole Gita. He said, really, you read the whole Gita? He was very happy. That night, when this major was sleeping, Srila Prabhupada appeared in the dream and told him, it is all right to read the purports also. And he came and told this devotee that your movement is too much. I have never seen authors chasing a person. So Srila Prabhupada said, my purports are my devotional ecstasies. So you can imagine that how crucial Srila Prabhupada felt this book's distribution and reading of these books was to create transformation in consciousness. In a world which is filled with propensity to enjoy and hate, to love and to actually express service attitude is so crucial. Like when a lot of terrorist activities were going on a few years ago in Mumbai, so many SMSs were floating by and people were speculating all types of things. And one of the SMS I remember, it said, about what should be done with the terrorists. And it said, God's duty is to forgive them, but it is our duty to fix their appointment with God. So like anger, hatred, and various kinds of things, what to do, what not to do. So Prabhupada said, when a society gets disconnected with Krishna and service to Krishna, then it becomes confused. And just like the branch of a tree gets disconnected, it dries up. So therefore, here we find that Hiranyakashipu represents this tendency, and Hiranyakashipu is ultimately going to be destroyed by the Lord who always protects his devotee. Now, Hiranyakashipu decides to educate his son Prahlad, which is like a favorite pastime of every parent. They want their children to be educated, which is normal, which is natural. So the fifth point which we will discuss today is materialistic education trains one to be a controller and enjoyer. Right? So here, when Yudhishthir Maharaj hears about how a father tried to attack his son, because of which Lord would appear. So Yudhishthir Maharaj wants to know, relationship between father and son is usually very affectionate. We have never heard that father punishes son to such an extent. Okay, son may sometimes make mistakes, father may punish also, but not to this extent. So what is this? So he is very eager to hear. So in response to that, Narad Muni continues the conversation. And so Prabhupada mentions in this purport that spiritual subjects need spiritual education. Yudhishthira Maharaj was intelligent. He was powerful. Yudhishthira Maharaj was controlling the whole world. Yudhishthira Maharaj was extremely well read. But still, spiritual subjects and the details of what is the secret of Krishna Tattva need one to approach a spiritual teacher in the association of devotees. So one of Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers writes beautifully about Srila Prabhupada that it was practically impossible to pierce through the situation in Kali Yuga and to spread Mahaprabhu's movement. And everybody was wondering, how will this movement spread? It was at that time that Srila Prabhupada appeared. And just like a needle is required to pierce through a flower, you'll make a garland, but the thread will not pierce through the flower. For the thread to enter into the flower, it needs the support of needle. So Srila Prabhupada was like that needle who pushed through that flower. And then the thread could follow. And that is the Krishna consciousness movement. And devotees all around the world have the opportunity to practice Krishna consciousness thanks to the loving sacrifice of His divine grace. So another analogy is given that the four sampradayas are compared to the four bends of a bow. And the string is compared to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in that string an arrow is kept. The feather of the arrow are the six Goswamis. The shaft is Srila Saraswati Thakur. And the tip of the arrow was His divine grace Srila Prabhupada, who finally found the mark. So therefore, only when Srila Prabhupada revealed the inner secrets within the Bhagavatam, even those of us who are in India are able to appreciate Krishna consciousness. Lot of intelligent, educated, successful people who have great competence over material subject matters. But that is not sufficient qualification to be able to enter into the mysteries of spiritual life. Saraswati Thakur was in the Gaudiya Math, and at that point, one big scholar was also a very amazing singer, was sitting there and singing, He was a very, very expert singer, so he was singing with great ragas. And he was singing, Rai Jago, Rai Jago. Rai means Radharani. So he was kind of singing and is making alap up and down, Rai Jago, telling Radharani to get up. Saraswati Thakur came from behind and slapped him on the head and said, Tum jago. First you get up from the slumber of ignorance and thinking that I am the enjoyer. Don't think you are so highly qualified that you can directly access Radharani and wake her up. First you wake up. So that's a very important point to appreciate, that we need spiritual guidance. And one devotee asked Srila Prabhupada, when I go to the spiritual world, how will I find you? Prabhupada said, oh, don't worry, I'll find you. You first think about how you'll reach the spiritual world. That itself is a big challenge. So Hiranyakashipu wanted Prahlad to be educated in a certain way. And the conflict between Prahlad and Hiranyakashipu actually began at this point about how he will be educated. Okay, but it was not like a simple thing that you should go to this tuition or that tuition or this or that. It was much more complex than this. So then Hiranyakashipu wanted to understand how is the progress happening. And so he called Prahlad and made him sit on his lap and asked him, so please, my dear boy, tell me what subjects you have learned in school. And so Prahlad Maharaj immediately responds, Tat sadhu manye suravarya dehinam sada samudvigna dhiyam asadgrahat hitvatma patam grihamanda kupam vanam gatoyat harim ashrayeta. So Prahlad is recommending to Hiranyakashipu, first he is addressing him, O best of asuras, O best of demons. And then he is recommending that you please go for a yatra to Vrindavan. Vanam gatoyat harim ashrayeta. Please go and take shelter of Lord Hari. And he says that Sada samudvigna dhyam, the cause of your anxiety is you are trying to be the controller and enjoyer. Asat grahat. You are trying to accept that which is asat. If you try to capture the temporary can never be captured. Therefore, all our identities in this world are constantly changing. And the more we try to grab those identities, the more those identities will change, move, be temporary, and put us in anxiety. And therefore, when Krishna himself goes through this identity crisis, when Krishna sees that I am Rasaraj, I am supposed to be the biggest controller, biggest enjoyer of love, I am supposed to be the greatest enjoyer of love, then Krishna sees that Radharani is enjoying more love than me. She possesses more love than me. So Krishna's identity goes through big question mark. That am I the biggest enjoyer? Am I Rasaraj? Or she? And so Krishna is in great anxiety when he goes through his existential crisis. And at that time Krishna decides, anyway, if someone else has more love than me, I know what to do. Because from my childhood I have experience of stealing butter, stealing clothes. So if she has more love than me, I will steal that love. So Krishna steals that love, and after stealing, he is thinking, where should I hide? Because thief needs to hide. Which is the best place to hide? Dark place where there is no light. So Kali Yuga, best yuga to hide. So Krishna, he actually steals that love and tries to hide in Kali Yuga. And when you have stolen some property and you are about to be caught, the easiest way to escape is start distributing. And he starts distributing that love. Apne liye nahi, aapke liye. But he realized that the more he distributes, the more his love is growing, the more his complexion and beauty is improving. And then everybody starts doubting, who is this? Only Krishna can actually experience and demonstrate and distribute such degree of love. So then they start doubting, is this Krishna? Is this the same thief Krishna? And then finally towards the last of his Leelas, 18 years in Gambhira in Jagannath Puri, when Swarup Damodar Goswami and Ramananda Rai start interrogating, Kya chori ki tumne? What kind of stealing you have done? In response to that interrogation, that Lord, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, starts speaking his confessions. And that is Shikshashtakam. The 8 verses which he speaks in response to that detailed interrogation by his associates. So all of us go through challenges and difficulties when our identity is threatened. And therefore, the entire anxiety of Hiranyakashipu is centered around his moving, changing, fleeting identities, which makes him insecure. And therefore, as soon as he hears this, that this is what, my son Prahlad is saying to me, so Hiranyakashipu is bewildered that I have managed to control 33 crore demigods. They submit and follow whatever I say. I am wanting my son to be educated in a certain way. Are the teachers teaching him properly or not? So he turns to Shanda and Amarka. So Shanda and Amarka are not ordinary people. If Hiranyakashipu has engaged them, we should be rest assured they were the best available at that time. Although we may not be convinced today, but they were the best. And at that time, Hiranyakashipu turns towards Shanda and Amarka and says, Samyak vidharyatam balo guru dehe dvijatibhi Vishnu pakshair pratichannai na tatha asya dhiparai. So he looks to Shanda and Amarka and says, Samyak vidharyatam balo, Shanda, Amarka, are you teaching my son properly? Is he studying the lessons properly? Why is he speaking like this? What he's speaking is nonsense. Looks like the devotees of Vishnu are entering and they are actually speaking other types of philosophy which he's catching. And be careful, because Vishnu always changes his dress. So his devotees also must be changing dress and entering. Be careful who is coming in. Looks like some college preaching is happening. What's going on here? So therefore, Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport that actually the materialistic consciousness is always very fearful about how the spiritual knowledge will enter. And many times one may think why this Krishna consciousness movement is spreading like this, or why we are trying to preach Krishna consciousness to others. In Australia, Gurudas Prabhu writes that the devotees were caught while doing the Harinam Sankirtan, produced in front of the judge. And then the defense lawyer said that on behalf of the city police that we have caught them because they are wearing all kinds of strange dress which is out of place with the city, and dancing and singing and all which is also out of place with the sober mood of the city. So the judge, he immediately said, well, I see most of the people in the city are depressed and the dress they are wearing is so boring. These people look so happy, so blissful, and their dress is so colorful. They are actually adding life and color to the city. They should do this more and more. So nobody could imagine that a judge would be impressed like this. But the fact is that when you look at materialistic life, it is simply centered around sense gratification, and anything which goes against that is questioned. So therefore here, Hiranyakashipu is questioning why my son has learned this. So Shanda and Amarka are also bewildered. They take Prahlad to the side and they start asking Prahlad, who taught you this? From where you learned? It is not part of our syllabus. From where you have learned this? So at that point, Prahlad Maharaj says, Yatha Brahmayati Ayo Brahman Swayam Akarsha Sannidhau Tatha me bhidyate chetas chakrapanir yadrichaya. Prahlad Maharaj says, actually, it is very simple. Just like iron is attracted to magnet, I am attracted to Krishna. I am wondering, why are you not attracted? Because it is a natural condition of the soul to be attracted to Krishna. So at this point, when Shanda and Amarka hear this, they are totally agitated. Because they are thinking, he is preaching to us, telling us why we are not getting attracted. So immediately they take up the stick and start threatening Prahlad. Aniyatam arevetram asmakam ayashaskara. This person is destroying the good name and fame of the Asura Kul. He must be destroyed. And in this way, they express their anger. So Srila Prabhupada mentions that when the iron is covered by the rust, it doesn't get attracted to the magnet. Similarly, when the soul is covered by lust, it doesn't get attracted to Krishna. One of the pujaris of Lord Nrisimha Katha in Mayapur, he was very fearful of Lord Nrisimha Katha while worshipping. So he was offering all kinds of upcharas and bhoga and everything, but he would be trembling. Right? Because he had heard that Lord Nrisimha Katha is very ferocious and he must not make a mistake. So he was more mistake conscious than Krishna conscious. So naturally, it's not easy to accept service from somebody who's so fearful. So one night when he was sleeping, he experienced a heavy weight. And he was thinking, something is moving and shaking. When he opened his eyes, he saw that Lord Nrisimha Katha was sitting on his chest. Ugra Nrisimha of Mayapur. So he thought, what's going on? He got totally bewildered. He wanted to get up. Lord Nrisimha Katha placed his 2 fingers on his shoulders and said, don't get up, relax. I have only come to give you one message. That for demons, I may be fearful, but you don't have to fear me. You can worship me peacefully. Don't worry. I am here to accept your love and service. And Nrisimha Katha spoke that very peacefully. But he got so bewildered, so agitated, he got up in the middle of the night, it was like almost Mangalarti time, ran into the temple hall in Gamcha. And everyone was wondering what's going on. And then later he shared this story. It is there in Pankajangri Prabhu's book. And even till date, there is mark of Lord Nrisimha Katha's nail. That is the power of Lord Nrisimha Katha's mercy. If we are open to be attracted towards him. Nrisimha Katha Bhagavan ki. So Prabhupada writes, in a society where everyone is demoniac, it's folly to be Krishna conscious. Right? And so the next point comes that the education of Shanda and Amarka to Prahlad continued. Spiritual education trains one to be an expert servant. So the previous one was materialistic education. But the spiritual education which Prahlad received was from Narad Muni. But Hiranyakashipu doesn't give up, continues the training, and then again brings Prahlad and makes Prahlad sit on his lap. Ask the question again to Prahlad, my dear Prahlad, please tell me, what have you learned in the school? And this time Prahlad Maharaj speaks the most famous verse. Shravanam kirtanam Vishnoho smaranam padasevanam archanam vandanam dasyam sakhyam atmanivedanam iti pumsarpita Vishnu bhaktische navalakshanaha. That these are the 9 types of processes of bhakti which we can practice, by which one actually attains Krishna. Srila Prabhupada says, spiritual strength means ability to rectify our mistakes. And detachment means not to allow anything of this world to affect our sadhana and seva, including popular opinion. And so here, Prahlad Maharaj was actually in the midst of great calamity. He was surrounded by forces who were trying to stop his Krishna consciousness. But with full conviction, he was expressing that this is the Navavidha Bhakti. So practicing Krishna consciousness in this world is difficult. Preaching Krishna consciousness is even more difficult. Right? Many years ago, I remember, I was going to some other town as part of my training, and there was no devotees there, no prasadam. So I had determined that whatever may happen, at least prasadam, I will make my own arrangements. So I was packing up all kinds of things in my bag. I was having a separate bag just for having stove the thing for making roti, belan, this, that, everything. And my room partner started asking me, are you going to set up a vada pav stall or something? What kind of training you are going for? So I said, no, Baba, Jan jai, par prasad na jai. Because no other devotees are there, there is no, at least my consciousness I must protect with prasad. But there was another problem because none of the hotels were allowing cooking. They said, room you can take, you cannot cook. So then someone told me there is this hotel where you can get room at 10 rupees per day. Really third class. But the first class thing is they will allow you to cook maybe. So I went there and the manager took me around inside, and when he took me to the room, he opened the door fell down. It was really a transcendental room. And it was black everywhere, and the window was broken, fan was broken, everything was broken. I said, well, I will only take this room on one condition. You will allow me to cook. He said, aur kitna bigadoge isko? You stay there, no problem. So then I stayed there, and for 10 days, it was such a tapasya to make your own food. Half the time was spent in, washing vessels. So I realized that when you have association of devotees, it is such a blessing and benediction you cannot imagine. Right? Whatever appears attractive to materialistic consciousness becomes exactly opposite, because there are so many difficulties and challenges which we face in maintaining our spiritual consciousness. So therefore, here, Prahlad Maharaj was in the midst of such difficult circumstances. It was so difficult, so challenging for him to maintain this. And so, in spite of that, he was practicing his consciousness to be fully focused on Krishna, and he was also preaching straight to Hiranyakashipu, not any ordinary person. And so, when Hiranyakashipu heard this, he became furious and turned to Shanda and Amarka and started chastising them left, right and center. Brahma bandho ki metatte vipaksha shrayatasata. How come my son is speaking like this? What are you teaching? And then Shanda and Amarka also feel offended, and they say, don't chastise us. We are teaching him what we are supposed to teach. We know what we are teaching him. We don't know from where he is getting all this. Don't offend us. We are also Brahmanas. So Shanda and Amarka ego also comes up. For a moment they forget Hiranyakashipu's power. And they also kind of become very defensive. And so Hiranyakashipu here makes one statement. Asaram grahito balam mam anadritya durmate. Are, you are catching the nonsense and forgetting the essence. I want you to learn about politics and how to be the controller and how to be the enjoyer. That is the sar. That is the essence of material life. You are forgetting that and becoming spiritual. Too much association of devotees. Not good. Previously you were normal. Now suddenly something has gone wrong. I was trying to give somebody prasad, he was refusing again and again. I said, why? He said, if I take this, my hairstyle will become like yours. So the power of the philosophy is such that one can actually start changing his consciousness from being an enjoyer to be a servant. And therefore here, Hiranyakashipu is very angry. And then he turns to Prahlad and again says, if they have not taught you, from where you have learned this? And Prahlad Maharaj says, Matirna Krishne paratasvatova mito bhipatyet grihavratanam adanta gobhir vishatam tamishram punah punas charvita charvananam. Prahlad Maharaj says, Matirna Krishne paratasvatova. My dear father, Hiranyakashipu, people like you have taken one vow in life. What is that vow? I will go to hell. Nobody can shake that vow. Either individually or collectively, the whole world can come and try to stop you. But you are determined to go to hell at such great speed that no one can stop that. And therefore he says in the next verse that people like you, nate vidu swartha gatim hi vishnum durashaya ye bahirartha manina. That you do not know the real goal of life is to attain the lotus feet of Krishna, the eternal service of Krishna. And how can you understand this? Not with intelligence, not with erudition, because scholarship may lead to erudition, but only submission leads to empowerment. And there is no way you can understand this unless naishamatis tavat urukramangrim sparshat anartha apagamo chayavat mahiyasam pada rajobhishekam nishkinchananam navrinita yavat. There is only one way you can do this. If you take the dust of the lotus feet of the devotees and smear it in your whole body, then your intelligence can transform. Then your mind can actually transform. My dear Father, please take the dust of the lotus feet of the Vaishnavas. Prahlad Maharaj is speaking to whom? Hiranyakashipu. Directly on his face. It is not that he is sending a recorded message. He is right there in front of him. He knows what could be the consequence of this. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada says, 5 things make our heart hard-hearted. Bhaktivinoda Thakur actually mentions this. That bhukti, mukti, dambha, nastikta, and offenses or aprad, these actually make the heart hard-hearted. And a hard heart is unable to actually accept the knowledge of Krishna consciousness. What is the difference between austerity and higher taste? Austerity means to say no to sense gratification grudgingly. And higher taste means to say no to sense gratification happily. Prabhupada was in Vrindavan and he was going to Fogla Ashram. The devotees in the morning had just gone ahead, and on the side there was someone selling, Bengali sweets. So he called the devotees and said, please honor some Bengali sweets. So they were very blissfully honoring some Bengali sweets, and suddenly Prabhupada's car went by. And they thought, oh, Prabhupada is going. And then they thought Prabhupada will go ahead. Prabhupada's car went ahead, stopped, turned back. And what they were expecting not to happen, happened. And Prabhupada rolled the window down, looked at the devotees. And it happened so suddenly, they had no time to swallow the sweets inside also. Some of the sweets were stuck in their, side of the mouth, and it was in their hand, and they were caught red-handed. So Prabhupada looked at them, and they were wondering what Prabhupada would say. Prabhupada said, Bengali sweets, essential for life. And the devotee said, Jai Prabhupada. And then Prabhupada went ahead. And then a couple of years later, Prabhupada was in one of the campuses giving lecture. And when Prabhupada came out, there was a book table. And on the book table, Prabhupada saw these books. And a devotee immediately came and gave Prabhupada sandesh and said to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Bengali sweets. He remembered that. Prabhupada picked up Chaitanya Charitamrita and said, this is the real Bengali sweet. So Srila Prabhupada spent significant time and energy translating and giving purports to the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Why? Because only when we understand the real tattva of Mahaprabhu through the devotees, then the transformation actually happens. So therefore, spiritual education trains one to be an expert servant. Now, we are coming towards the conclusion of this pastime, which is Hiranyakashipu's anger is growing and growing and growing. Hiranyakashipu is already famous for being angry. So when someone is famous for being angry and cruel, he starts reaching the pinnacle of his anger. It's very, very dangerous. So at this point, the seventh point which we will discuss today is false ego addicts one to be total control, and even a slight change is intolerable. And so Hiranyakashipu had 33 crore demigods following him. Hiranyakashipu had practically everyone in the universe. Oh, I've got a note that to continue till 11:15. Gopalji special darshan pujaris have requested some more time. So I have bona fide authority. So Hiranyakashipu was not satisfied, thinking that so many people are anyway listening to me. 33 crore demigods and all the demons put together. In history, nobody had had so many disciples, so many followers by force. But the nature of false ego is such that one Prahlad is refusing to accept. His entire consciousness is focused only on why Prahlad is not following me. That is the obsessive, compulsive nature of the false ego. Right? One of the devotees, when he was in college, he started chanting rounds. And he asked the other devotees, why should I chant? They said, Arey, you'll get good marks. So he started chanting 4 rounds. He actually got good marks. He passed. Although he studied little less, he passed. So he said, wow, wonderful. What is the next step? Devotee said, chant 16 rounds. So he started chanting 16 rounds. In the next exam, he failed. He got totally bewildered. He said, what is going on? Then they told him the philosophy that Krishna is supreme controller, and many times what he does is achintya, inconceivable. So have faith. And then he had patience. He continued on and then became a nice devotee. But when we go through failure, when we go through challenge to our plans, when someone's opinion does not match ours, then the false ego gets completely bewildered. Therefore here, Hiranyakashipu was so used to controlling his circumstances. He thought all the circumstances can be controlled. So each soul in the conditioned state has unlimited ability to consume sense objects, unlimited desire to control other people, unlimited desire to convince others about our own opinions. And so Hiranyakashipu felt, I should have the power to convince my son about my opinion that I am the greatest. And therefore it was a difference of opinion. And even the most insignificant 5-year-old boy has the ability to differ in opinion. And the most powerful demon, who has all the demons and demigods under his control, does not have the power to change the opinion of his own 5-year-old son. And therefore, material life teaches us how we can control circumstances better. But we come into the satsanga of the devotees to learn how we can control our consciousness better. Because in spite of all of our best efforts, circumstances cannot be controlled completely. We have limited control over our circumstances, but unlimited control over our consciousness. And that's why we have come to the association of devotees in Krishna consciousness. So Hiranyakashipu, in great anger, starts instructing his demoniac associates. We must punish this Prahlad. He is untrustworthy. He is 5-year-old, and in spite of being only 5-year-old, he is willing to give up his relationship with his own father. Throw him under the feet of elephants, subject him to the bites of snakes, give him poison to kill, destroy him by throwing him from the tops of the mountains, starve him, and all kinds of attacks are unleashed by the demons upon Shri Prahlad. This kind of attack one cannot even imagine, one cannot even tolerate in the normal course of situation. But Prahlad Maharaj was constantly absorbed in the thoughts of the Lord, and although all of these efforts and attempts were made, Prahlad was completely untouched, protected by the Lord's grace. This bewildered Hiranyakashipu even more. And Hiranyakashipu got so bewildered that he turns to Prahlad and asks him, from where you are getting so much of power? And Prahlad Maharaj says, from the same source you are getting from. And so Hiranyakashipu becomes very, very angry. And then he says, Yastvaya manda bhagyokto madanyo jagadishvaraha kvasau yadisa sarvatra kasmat stambhena drishyate. He says, you are speaking about a controller who is more powerful than me. Manda bhagyokto. Oh, you seem to be so unfortunate. Why you are unfortunate? You can't appreciate my own glories. You can't appreciate Hiranyakashipu's glories. You are unfortunate. Madanyo Jagadishvara. You are speaking about a controller besides me. And this is the crux of the problem of Hiranyakashipu. That if you go through all the chapters and try to analyze what was Hiranyakashipu's main cause of irritation, this was the actual psychological issue. Madanyo Jagadishvara. How can someone be a greater, more powerful controller than me? How is it possible? And then Hiranyakashipu turns towards Prahlad and says, Kvasau yadisa sarvatra. If he is everywhere, kasmat stambhena drishyate. Can I not see him within this pillar? So that is his main question. That why, if he is everywhere, is he here also? When Sita comes in Ashoka Vatika and brought by Ravana, when Ravana comes to convince Sita for the first time, Sita puts a straw right in front of Ravana. And the Acharyas explain why Sita puts that straw. So one thing which Sita is telling Ravana is that there is an etiquette and formality. I am not your wife, so therefore there should be some distance. So the straw is to keep a distance. Then, second reason she's putting the straw is saying that, Ravana, you think you are so powerful, you are so wealthy, all your wealth put together is equivalent to this insignificant straw. I consider it like that. See this straw? That is your wealth. Then she goes one step ahead and says, no, actually, I consider you to be insignificant like this straw. That is what this is. She goes one step ahead and says, no, dharmena hina pashubhi samana. One who has no dharma is like an animal, and animal eat what? Straw. Take, eat this. Eat this straw. That is what he's saying. And then she's saying that when Ram comes and burns Lanka and you are homeless, that time what you will do? You will need a home, no? Use this straw to make a hut. And then he may think, from where Ram will come here? So Sita Devi says, Lord has manifested in the past from pillar also. Just like he can manifest from pillar, he can manifest from this straw and destroy you. That was Sita's conviction. So therefore, here we find that Prahlad Maharaj has complete conviction that my Lord is everywhere. But Hiranyakashipu has this doubt. Where is your God? So Prabhupada was sitting in a temple giving lecture, and there was this man sitting right in front of the deities, and he got up and he looked at Prabhupada and said, "Can you see God?" Prabhupada said, "Yes, but you are coming in the way. Sit down." So the deities are actually the form of the Lord. Lord is there, but is the faith there? And therefore here, the faith was being questioned. And at that point, Kasmat Stambhena Drishyate, as soon as Hiranyakashipu challenged Prahlad, and with great anger, he took the sword in his hand and took the fist and started banging against that pillar. At that moment, the pillar broke open, and from inside came Lord Nrisimha Dev. Lord Nrisimha Dev Bhagavan ki. So Nrisimha Dev Bhagavan manifested, and immediately Hiranyakashipu was totally bewildered because he had never seen a form like this. Mimamsa manasya samuttitograto Narasimha Rupam Tadalam Bhayanakam. So Lord Nrisimha Dev appeared with unlimited fury. And it is described that right within the pillar, Nrisimha Dev was becoming intolerable in his anger by seeing the way Prahlad was being treated. And when he came out, his anger was at its peak. And then a whole fight began between Hiranyakashipu and Lord Nrisimha Dev. At that point, this verse comes, Satyam Vidhatum Nija Bhritya Bhashitam. So Nija Bhritya refers to Brahmaji's words that yes, my dear Hiranyakashipu, you will not be killed by all these tattvas. It also refers to the words of Jai Vijay. It also refers to the words of Narada Muni. So Nija Bhritya has many connotations. But ultimately, Lord Nrisimha Dev manifests so that Adrishyata ati adbhuta rupam udvahan stambhe sabhayam namrigam namanusham. In a form which was neither animal nor human. And then Hiranyakashipu looks at this form and is thinking from where this form came. Is he animal? Is he human? Will he have the potential to kill me? But Hiranyakashipu was convinced no one can kill me. No one can destroy me. So Hiranyakashipu was in full self-confidence and he started fighting. And Lord Nrisimha Dev also was fighting with full fury and creating sound which was like shrill of thousands of elephants. And that shrilling shriek of Lord Nrisimha Dev, it shook the hearts of Hiranyakashipu. And the demigods were looking from above the sky, from behind the clouds. And the demigods were thinking, my dear Lord, don't take so much risk. Don't prolong the fight. Because as you know, it was going to be the Independence Day for the demigods. They were waiting for this day. But they had gone through so much from Hiranyakashipu, they did not have full confidence that Lord Nrisimha Dev will actually manage to destroy. So therefore, when they will see that Hiranyakashipu has been, for the time being, pulled down on the ground, they would be very happy. But then suddenly Hiranyakashipu would get up and look at the sky. So they would hide behind the clouds. Because demigods were afraid, by chance, if there is a small percentage chance that Hiranyakashipu survives and Nrisimha Dev will fail in his duty or postpone, because Krishna, you never know what his plans are. Some sudden condition may come and he will say, okay, you go through few more hits, At that time, Hiranyakashipu will remember each and every demigod who laughed and clapped. And so he will make sure that ultimately he will destroy each one of us. So they were hiding behind the clouds. Even at that point, after seeing the manifest form of Nrisimha Dev, they did not have full faith. So at that point, Lord Nrisimha Dev was playing just like a cat plays with a mouse. And finally, Nrisimha Dev Bhagavan picks up Hiranyakashipu on his lap, which is neither ground nor the sky, and brings him to the door, which is neither in nor out. And then places his nails on the stomach of Hiranyakashipu, which is neither living nor dead. And it was exactly the time of sunset, which was neither day nor night. And at that moment, Lord Nrsimhadev, at the most auspicious moment, broke through the stomach of Hiranyakashipu, and a huge fountain of blood, it spurted through and decorated the entire mane and face of Lord Nrsimhadev. And Lord Nrsimhadev's anger went on increasing more and more and more. And so many demons came and attacked. They were so foolish, they couldn't realize what our future will be. And Nrsimhadev caught hold of each one of them, destroyed everybody. And then Nrsimhadev saw that nobody is around to congratulate me and glorify me, worship me, respect me in this situation. So Nrsimhadev himself put his hand inside Hiranyakashipu's stomach, took out his intestines, and self-garlanded himself. And at that time, the roaring sound was so much, the demigod started discussing that when a person is blinded by anger, he cannot distinguish between friend and foe. He cannot distinguish between demigod, demon. So if we come in front of him, he may think we are also part of the demon only, and he may destroy us. So then all of them started discussing who will go in front, who will go in front. Lakshmi Devi refused. I have never seen husband like this. And then finally all of them looked at Brahmaji. You gave the benediction. Brahmaji turned to Prahlad and said, your father. And because of your father, all this thing is happening. So you should go. So Prahlad Maharaj is so humble. It is very interesting that it was a service nobody could do. What was the seva? Pacifying Nrsimhadev. If a service you get where nobody can do, there is tendency to feel distinction. That, oh, I am so special. So when Prahlad Maharaj was told by Brahmaji, none of the demigods can go forward, even I have failed, Lakshmi has failed, only you can do it. Prahlad didn't feel, oh, video leke aao. थोड़ा रिकॉर्डिंग करो बराबर फ्यूचर के लिए याद रखना. Prahlad Maharaj was so humble, he just went right in front of Lord, fell at his feet. Lord Nrsimhadev placed his lotus-like hand on Prahlad. And then Prahlad Maharaj spoke. Brahmadayo suragana munayo tasiddha satvaikata nagatayo vachasam pravahai नाराधितुम पुरुगुणैरधुना पिपिप्रु किम तोष्टुमर्हति समे हरिरुग्र जाते. Prahlad Maharaj says, my dear Lord, greatest demigods are not able to worship you and please you with their speech. How can a demon like me express anything with my disqualification? Kim toshtum arhati me harer ugra jate. I don't have the qualification to glorify you. It is not possible. So therefore, gratitude means to not expect anything from anybody. Because even if our desires are fulfilled, it will only grow. And if the desire is not fulfilled, we will feel depressed, defiant, angry. And therefore, Prahlad Maharaj is simply expressing gratitude. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, to progress in spiritual life, one needs these four kinds of qualifications. First, he says, we must have appreciation. Second, we must have gratitude. Third, we must have optimism that we can transform, others can transform. And fourth is we must have tolerance in all kinds of difficult situations. Without this, progress is not possible. So Prahlad Maharaj is actually an embodiment of this positive attitude. So Lakshmi Devi becomes a little angry with Nrsimhadev and refuses to come closer. And Nrsimhadev says, Arey, you are my consort. Lakshmi Devi says, I always thought you are merciful, but today You have disappointed me. Hiranyakashipu was mercilessly killed by you. Is this part of your being bhakta, being, merciful? At least if he is Jay and Vijay, you should have given him an opportunity. Some warning you should have given. Jumped out of the pillar without even exchanging business card. Finished him. What is this? Don't give him any chance only. You are supposed to allow people to reform. Looks like you are taking pleasure in killing. So then Lord assured, don't worry. In next avatar, when I am there, I will give chance. Okay, this time little hurry. Lord Hari was in a hurry to complete the surgery. So therefore, he did not give chance. So next avatar, Lord Ram gave Ravana quite a few chances. Even on the battlefield, when Ravana was totally defeated, Ram had full chance to finish him. He said, okay, last promise. You go and see if you can forgive, if you can actually give Sita back without me having to kill you and destroy you. So therefore, Prahlad Maharaj in this way is demonstrating how we can be conscious in all situations. And when the Lord asks him for benedictions, he says, Yadi dasyasi me kaman varan tvam varadoshava kamanam hridi samroham bhavatastu vrinevaram. My dear Lord, I do not have any desire except let me be free from all material desires and let me simply be dedicating myself to serve you and please you. That should be our desire and that should be our prayer on the occasion of Nrisimha Katha, that in all situations, my dear Lord, please keep us in your shelter, protect us from the influence of the enemies of material desires. Let us have the innocence of a small child, a small girl, true story in South Africa. She was crossing the road. Jai Nrisimha Dev Bhagwan ki. As she was crossing the road, there was a truck which came. And that truck hit that child because she was trying to cross the road to catch a ball. And the moment the truck hit the child, the father got so bewildered, he collapsed. And they took the child to the hospital. There was no way she could have survived because it was a direct hit. Looked like the bones were smashed or this or that. The X-ray was brought. The doctor said, whose X-ray is this? He said, of the same child who was brought in. Doctor said, no, there is a mistake. Bring the right X-ray. He says, no, this is the X-ray of that child only. Not a single bone was smashed. Though all the limbs were intact. So when the child came to consciousness, they asked, what happened? And the child said, well, I was playing with the ball. I was crossing the road when the truck came. Naturally, because I love Lord Nrisimha Dev so much, I immediately remembered him. I chanted, Nrisimha, Nrisimha. At that point, Lord Nrisimha Dev personally came, placed his nails around my two parts of my body here, waist, picked me up, placed me gently on the grass, and then I was safe. So everybody was bewildered. And how did this happen? And then the marks are still there. So Lord Nrisimha Dev actually protects his devotees when he wants to. But most importantly, he must protect us from our material desires. And when he protects us from material desires, when he sees an innocent cry that I am helpless to conquer over the ocean of these desires, only you can help me, my dear Lord Nrisimha Dev. With this prayer, let us celebrate our entire day on the occasion of Nrisimha Katha, remembering Lord Nrisimha Dev, glorifying Lord Nrisimha Dev, remembering the devotion of Prahlad Maharaj, and remembering that we should not become victim of the inauspicious desires which were constantly haunting the heart and the mind of Hiranyakashipu. To know that the false ego is such a powerful enemy that the false ego cannot be destroyed in the day, in the night, outside or inside, in the earth or in the sky, in any kind of situation by any weapons. The only way this false ego can be destroyed is when the Lord personally manifests and appears and agrees to destroy this false ego by the power of his devotees' mercy and grace. Thus, let us look upon each and every Vaishnava as an opportunity to serve and please, and by their pleasure, this thick, hard, rock-like Shila Tanka of false ego can be dissolved by the grace of the devotees' pleasure. And when the devotees are pleased, Lord Nrisimha Dev and Lord Krishna and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will bestow their grace and give real Krishna prema to all of us. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna. So, I have a nice announcement that this is the 75th anniversary of Back to Godhead. And on this occasion, the temple has organized a BTG subscription marathon. And the marathon has started from the April 15th and will be till 15th of May. English, Hindi, Marathi, Gujarati, Telugu, Oriya are the languages available. Cost of the subscription is rupees 250 per year. BTG is the backbone of ISKCON and it only costs 68 paisa per day. So please subscribe for yourself and encourage your friends and relatives to subscribe. If you can do hand delivery, it would be great. For details, please contact BTG stall downstairs. So please distribute and assist in distributing Back to Godhead and go back home, back to Godhead. So we'll end with Nrisimha Arti. Darshan? So as the darshan opens, we'll begin singing the Nrisimha Arti. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Prahlada Dadaine. Prahlada Dadaine.